They called it the unicorn of the Ice Age, a towering beast that might have thrust its horn with enough force to knock a saber-toothed cat clean off its feet. It lived in an unforgiving era, where only the most resilient survived, and somehow managed to hold its ground in a harsh realm shared by early humans. But was its fabled horn truly as colossal as legends say? Or is there a deeper mystery hidden within the bones that have captivated paleontologists for centuries? By the end of this story, you'll see why the mighty Elasmotherium has both enthralled and perplexed scientists in equal measure, and why some argue we've only begun to scratch the surface of its power. Long before the word unicorn conjured images of a delicate, sparkling horse, there was an ancient titan that stormed across the grassy steppes of Eurasia. Known scientifically as Elasmotherium, this creature's name might not sound as poetic as Siberian unicorn, but the idea behind that nickname is rooted in something extraordinary. When the first fossil skulls were discovered, they revealed a bony mass on the forehead, implying a horn of breathtaking proportions. Early paleontologists couldn't help but compare it to the mythic single-horned beasts in folklore. And soon, rumors spread that maybe, just maybe, the fables of unicorns weren't entirely fictional after all. As more fossils emerged, people started weaving tales of a gigantic rhino-like monster, brandishing a single horn that could allegedly stretch up to 3 meters long. Some envisioned it barreling through Ice Age grasslands, scaring off packs of hungry predators. Others speculated that ancient humans might have spotted these horned giants and spun the sightings into fireside stories that stood the test of millennia. Even today, debate rages over how much of the unicorn myth traces back to sightings of these awe-inspiring animals. To appreciate the Elasmotherium's place in prehistory, forget everything you think you know about modern rhino. Imagine a hulking creature that could tip the scales at nearly 5 tons, comparable to a fully grown black rhinoceros or even larger, and almost rivaling some small elephants. Now picture it with limbs that weren't quite as stubby as today's rhinos, possibly giving it a surprisingly swift gait for an animal its size. In fact, some paleontologists suggest it may have been capable of galloping across the grasslands like a massive, overgrown horse, though not nearly as nimble as a modern thoroughbred, of course. Why mention horses? Because, despite appearances, Elasmotherium is more closely related to them than you might expect. Within the order Perissodactyla, often called the odd-toed ungulates, horses walk on a single toe, while rhinos and tapirs walk on 3. Elasmotherium, as a distant cousin to rhinoceroses, shares certain skeletal features but also has surprising traits reminiscent of equines. The concept of a rhino-horse hybrid might sound bizarre, but it emphasizes just how unique this Ice Age juggernaut was. Beyond mere size, the creature's real power lay in its robust skeletal and muscular systems. Fossils suggest it had a formidable hump-like structure near its shoulders or upper back, possibly supporting massive neck muscles that anchored its horn, whatever its true size. Imagine the raw strength needed to wield a heavyweight horn in an age teeming with deadly predators. While modern rhinos have horns on their noses, Elasmotherium's horn, if it indeed matched the largest estimates, jutted from a broad dome-like base on its forehead. This strategic positioning might have granted it extra leverage against adversaries, be they saber-toothed cats or even marauding hyenas. Why so much muscle and bone mass for a grazer? Some suspect that competition for food in the Ice Age steppes could be as fierce as any tooth and claw battle. Large predators roamed the tundra, but so did massive herds of herbivores, which meant the best feeding spots were hotly contested. The bigger and more powerful you were, the more likely you'd survive. Elasmotherium's sturdy legs and robust frame may have been the ultimate insurance policy in a world where danger loomed at every turn. No feature of Elasmotherium stirs more debate than its horn. Early accounts were sensational, describing a protrusion that could stretch nearly 3 meters, dwarfing the horns of modern rhinos. To put that into perspective, even the largest white rhino horn generally tops out around 1 meter or so. Thus, the notion of a horn triple that length sparked imaginations worldwide. Enthusiasts pictured it as a lethal lance, a jousting weapon capable of keeping saber-toothed cats at bay or even dueling with rival Elasmotherium. But here's where reality complicates the legend. Fossils rarely preserve horn material because rhino horns are composed primarily of keratin, the same protein found in hair and fingernails rather than bone. Elasmotherium skulls do show a large dome-like base on the forehead, which suggests a horn was present, but the exact size and shape remain guesswork. Some paleontologists propose it might have been shorter, perhaps more of a thick bump than an elegant spike. Others point to potential calcium deposits or melanin patterns that might have strengthened an enormous horn. Then there's the curious presence of a possible keratin sheath. If the horn truly reached epic proportions, the surrounding sheathing might have provided both durability and a formidable aesthetic. On the other hand, skeptics argue that there's insufficient evidence for such length, claiming the horn, while present, was nowhere near as grand as folklore suggests. They highlight cave paintings showing a horn of moderate size. Impressive, but not comically huge. This discrepancy is more than a trivial detail. It challenges our entire image of the Siberian unicorn. Was it a monstrous charging beast brandishing a horn to rival medieval lances? Or did it sport a smaller, less intimidating protuberance that paleontologists simply misread at first? It's a mystery that keeps the debate alive and well in scientific circles, fueling conference discussions and research papers year after year. One reason to understand how Elasmotherium survived in such a hostile setting, it helps to picture the late Pleistocene epoch teeming with ferocious competition. Giants stalked the land, from saber-toothed cats with dagger-like canines to cave bears that dwarfed modern grizzlies. Even Ice Age lions and highly adaptable hyenas claimed territory across Eurasia, forming packs that could harass and wear down large prey. For a massive herbivore, every step outside a safe grazing area carried potential peril. Yet Elasmotherium, with its towering mass and possible giant horn, had a notable advantage. Full-grown adults likely had little to fear from single predators, and while a pack of hyenas could still pose a threat, the risk of tangling with a 5-ton colossus was high. However, not all members of the species enjoyed that safety. Calves were vulnerable, prompting speculation that females or dominant males would defend them vigorously against prowling carnivores. A single, well-placed horn thrust or stampede of trampling hooves might be enough to deter even the bravest Ice Age lion. Unlike some smaller herbivores, Elasmotherium was too large to rely on speed alone. Yet the possibility it could gallop, albeit clumsily, provided an extra layer of defense. It could also simply stand its ground. Armored with thick muscle and likely dense skin or fur, it was an imposing adversary. Researchers have found signs of wear and tear in the fossil remains that could hint at violent encounters, from predator attacks to intra-species battles over territory or mates. Environmental conditions were harsh too. The temperature could plummet as the climate shifted unpredictably, and resources like grass and bulbs might have become scarce during colder periods. Imagine stepping onto a frozen tundra with minimal vegetation. Survival demands either migration or the ability to dig deep for hidden roots. Evidence shows Elasmotherium's teeth were adapted for heavy grinding, meaning it could process tough, fibrous plants. These specialized chompers might have been another weapon in its arsenal, the ability to thrive in places other grazers couldn't. However, even the most ruthless predators were sometimes overshadowed by a competitor that wielded stone tools and cunning intelligence: humans. One of the most astonishing details about Elasmotherium is that it roamed the Earth up until around 40,000 years ago, meaning there was an overlap with our ancient human ancestors. Fossils of this species have been found scattered from Eastern Europe across the entirety of Asia, marking it as one of the most widespread megafauna of its time. Meanwhile, early humans were spreading across these landscapes, armed with rudimentary but increasingly sophisticated hunting tactics. Could humans have witnessed the Elasmotherium in the flesh? Many experts say yes. More than that, some believe humans might have scavenged its remains or even deliberately hunted it. The thick, bulky muscle and hide would have been a daunting challenge, but the payoff, an enormous amount of meat and valuable horn, might have been irresistible. Stories or legends about a giant single-horned beast could have spread through tribal groups, morphing and eventually seeping into cultural mythology. On the flip side, it's not impossible that a defensive or cornered Elasmotherium might have charged and injured or even killed unwary humans. Contemporary accounts of modern rhino aggression are chilling enough, and Elasmotherium was bigger, faster, potentially, and possibly possessed a far deadlier weapon. It's plausible that scattered conflicts escalated around watering holes or contested feeding grounds. While direct evidence of such clashes remains scarce, the possibility alone has ignited considerable speculation among researchers and enthusiasts alike. As for the unicorn legend, the overlap in timelines fuels wild theories. Some argue that fragments of real encounters survived through oral tradition, describing a monstrous, single-horned beast. Others suspect that early hunts of Elasmotherium might have led to prized trophies, giant horns, or horn fragments, treasured by tribes for ceremonial or decorative purposes. These relics, once parted from their owners, could have become the stuff of legend, reinforcing the tale of an almost mythical creature that defied belief. For all its power, Elasmotherium faced a formidable opponent it couldn't fight off: a rapidly changing climate. As the last ice age intensified, the grasslands it relied on gave way to frozen tundra and scattered patches of vegetation too sparse to sustain such a colossal grazer. Though some pockets of suitable habitat might have lingered, these refuges eventually shrank, isolating populations until they vanished altogether. One of the last surviving species, Elasmotherium sibiricum, held on in places across Eurasia, but archaeological evidence shows it gradually faded from the fossil record. By the time 40,000 years ago rolled around, it had seemingly disappeared, though not without leaving behind tantalizing clues. In the early 1800s, Princess Yekaterina Dashkova famously donated fossils that would ignite renewed interest in the creature, setting the stage for centuries of scientific debate. Even now, some researchers suggest the timeline could be wrong, speculating that small, remote populations might have persisted longer than official estimates indicate. So far, these claims remain unproven, but they add yet another layer of intrigue to an already mysterious creature. The synergy between climate shifts and human activity likely sealed its fate. Whether our ancestors contributed significantly to Elasmotherium's extinction or merely accelerated an inevitable decline is hard to ascertain. Still, the end result remains the same. A once dominant Ice Age juggernaut slipped into the annals of history, leaving behind only bones and speculation. Elasmotherium's saga reminds us that reality can sometimes surpass even our wildest fantasies. Here was a 5-ton powerhouse, roaming between continents, brushing up against early humans, possibly inspiring legends we still whisper about today. The debate over its horn, whether an impossibly long spike or a more modest protrusion, only underscores how much there is yet to uncover. Part rhinoceros, part horse, and all beast, the so-called Siberian unicorn, fascinates precisely because it defies neat categories. If you found yourself captivated by the sheer might of this Ice Age titan, just wait until you see what other prehistoric surprises lie just beneath the surface of our world's history. The deeper we look, the more we learn that the line between myth and reality can be razor thin. And sometimes the real story is far more magical than any fantasy we could invent.